And thanks you guys for taking a half hour out of your day to get up to date on what we've done with iMerge lately. Notice that I've titled the webinar iMerge with Duplicate Finder. Actually, Brittany does these things. We want to focus a little bit on the Duplicate Finder. This product we added to iMerge a couple years ago, and there's some real powerful things in there, but I think out of the box, it's a little bit like IMIS. Out of the box, it has to be configured really to take full advantage of that. So let's get going here. You probably already know a little bit about us. We've been around since, been selling IMIS since '92. We've been around since 1991. In August, we celebrated 25 years here at CSI. And we like to kind of think of ourselves as the leading provider of add-on products for the IMIS community. Some of those products that many of you already have are, for instance, our most popular product this year in terms of sales is iImport and Activity Importer Plus. The ability to update and insert new and existing name and addresses, demographics, you can bring in companies and rosters all at one time, you can set user credentials, all those fun things. People are using it almost to update more than they are to insert. I had a client recently that had a corrupt, they had messed up their prefixes, and a whole bunch of records went in without a period on the end of Mr. or Mrs. And they said, how much to fix? I said, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to go in and write a script, it's gonna be a couple hours. And they got me, and they said, hey, we already have iImport, can't we fix it with that? And they were. They knew the records that were bad. All they did was update the prefix to Mr. period or Mrs. period, and it went and corrected everything else on the back end. So they were able to not only do it themselves, but they were able to do it at no cost to them. Meeting closers still being sold today. Great product for closing meetings and expos, and if you're using certification, it's very important for this product to create your CEUs or CMEs or whatever you might be calling them. Our iEmail is our #1 product. Outlook integration, we have a cloud version coming out now if you're interested. As a quick reminder, since I've gotten 2 questions on that this week, iEmail out of the box, iEmail desktop that you know and love, does work with Office 365. Office 365 is just like Exchange or Gmail, it's how you get to it. So really the product definition there is iEmail desktop requires the Outlook client, and iEmail cloud does not. iMap is our geolocation tool for putting geolocation on each and every address in IMIS. Our online donation product, CSI Donate, the easiest to use, fastest single-page giving solution. I can put a page up. Anybody in my foundation can get a donation page up within seconds. Page Filter, our product for tweaking public view and or Rise pages for things you don't want to see or things you want to add. If you're using fundraising, you better have Freeze because it's really a critical component for all organizations using IMIS fundraising. Our newest product, iDocument, allows you to create all that documentation for when you do lose your IMIS superstar at your organization, you actually have everything documented. And of course, while you're here today, iMerge. So we're going to cover a couple things today. Finding duplicates, the easy way. Get your geek on stored procedures, spelled wrong, that's my fault, but we'll fix that someday. Other options you have, some changes we made for IMIS 20, and what else might be new. So that's what we're going to cover today. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we really want to talk a little bit about the duplicate finder that's part of iMerge. The cool thing about it is it can support multiple search profiles. I'm going to talk about what those are in a second. You can even take those profiles once you've configured and tweaked them and share them with your friends and family. So search profiles can be exported and imported. So if you've got the perfect search profile and you want to share it with someone else in the community, you can do that. We do support known duplicates, and one of the enhancements we've added now is if you mark something as a known duplicate in the dupe finder, it's actually going to warn you in the base product as well if you try and merge those 2 records. So the known duplicate in the dupe finder says, don't show me these dupes anymore, I know about them and they're real. And what we did was we expanded that to the base product so that if you tried to actually merge those 2 Brittany Mercados, it's going to tell you they are known dupes, don't do that. You can merge on the fly through the duplicate finder as well. You can batch your merging if you want. And then you can do something really, really cool called priority grouping that we're going to talk about. And if you don't know how to get to the duplicate finder, it's right there from your main iMerge screen, Tools, Duplicate Finder. That's how you get to it. And when you go in there, you're going to see something like this, CSI Default Duplicate Search. And if you click Show Details, boom, you actually see all of the setup options you have for this profile, if you will. You've got a name. You've got the maximum number of duplicates you want it returning. You've got the fields that it's actually going to show on the screen. You have your formula that looks really fun. You can add foreign character check in there as well. And then you can actually take out or exclude certain records. So in this case, I'm excluding any record marked for deletion. I don't even want to look at it because I'm going to be deleting it. This duplicate record check formula is pretty straightforward. It's the same one IMERGE uses. And it's the first 5 characters of the zip code and the first 4 characters of the last name and the first character of the first name. Or if the last name is blank, it's the first 5 characters of the zip code and the first 4 characters of the company name. This is a great formula, and I believe of the 35 people on the call today, it's probably going to work for about 1 of you. So it's really important that you update and or create your own duplicate finder profile. It's just really, really important. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to do that. But first, I thought I'd talk about a case study. It's one of our clients, Zeta Tau Alpha. They're an international women's fraternity founded in 1898, and they have over 245,000 members. They've got our CSI Donate product, and they also have a third-party donation system. So they got donations coming in all over the place to their foundation. And the key thing when you're getting a donation really is to get the donation. Worry about the duplicate later. We need the cash. So as such, they got a lot of duplicates in their database. And they have so many that Janet Cyrus, who works there, just did not want to deal with it. In fact, I said, just use the duplicate finder. And she said, Doug, when I run that, it comes up and tells me I have 7,590 duplicates in my database. And I can't even fathom that we have that many. I can't even begin to think about how I'm going to merge that many records. I'm going to basically have to quit my job and become a full-time duplicate merge person for Zeta. Well, the problem is if you really looked at a lot of those duplicates, they weren't duplicates. So what happened is, you know, when Janet kind of dealt with this whole thing, this is what I created. There's Janet just kind of pulling her hair out, right, because she doesn't know what to do. So we sat down with her, and with a few simple tweaks, we actually dropped her number of duplicates down to 2,193. And these are real simple tweaks that we did. And that's still a lot of duplicates, but it's a lot more manageable than 7,500. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we did that. It really, really was easy. Greg at our office worked with her and said, we're looking at all 245,000 records. Well, actually, she's got over 300,000 records in her database because they've been around since 1898. So what they did was they took a look and they excluded a whole bunch of records. They excluded their chapters. They excluded their alumni chapters. They excluded people that they knew needed to be in there in duplicates. And so here's the formula they added, the filter formula. The word not is important. And then they listed every member type they did not want included in the search. And as you saw, it took out about 5,000 duplicates. So pretty important there and made it a lot more manageable. They also brought stuff in and they turned on their priority ranking, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. There's other things you can do besides excluding records, however, all right? So the first thing you can do is we're only looking at the first 4 characters of the last name and the first character of the first name. Change it up a bit. You'll see right here I'm actually looking now at the first 6 characters of the last name and the first 5 of the first name. So there's some cool things you can do there as well. I've left all of this alone, and I've just changed these two numbers in my formula. What if you added the company name into the search as well? Out of the box, I'm missing a parenthesis there, we'll fix that. Out of the box, we've got, we basically say that if the last name is not blank, then look at last name and first name. Otherwise, look at the company. But I can actually go out here and add in the company. And so now I'm looking at my last name, if it's not blank, first 6 characters, first 5 of my first name, and then this plus company. I'm adding in the first 5 of the company. Now, you may or may not want to do this, but this is just some cool little stuff you can do. But you may want to really go cray cray. All right, so if you're on SQL 2008 and or higher, there's some really powerful words. I should say functions, but they're words. And that's SOUNDEX. SOUNDEX is a function in SQL that will convert what it sounds like when you say it to a 4-digit code so you can compare it. So here's a cool little duplicate record check formula. I'm saying if saying the full name sounds like saying the full name, and then I'm saying let's also look at the last first. Let's look at the first 5 characters. So basically, this is going to help me with spelling errors that might be occurring here and there. You can play around with this. It's not going to hurt anything. I thought it was a lot of fun to do. I just decided today to put SOUNDEX in there. I thought it was a cool thing. It's not available if you're on SQL 2005, but hey, if you're on that, you're 11 years past due an upgrade. So there's a fun thing to do. And then finally, don't forget to save your work. There's a save button down here. And one of the great things about doing these webinars is I got to go in, I have to use our product. And I was just yelling at ASI today that, hey, make sure your developers actually have to use the product. I'm eating my own dog food when I set this stuff up, and I realized we don't have a Save As button. I want to be able to change all this and not override what's up here. I want to do a Save As. So I've put a request in that we're going to add a Save As button in here. So that'll be really cool as well. So now, if we look at Janet, right, she's still got 2,000 that she's got to deal with, right? So I call this Tackle the Stack, just because it was fun to say and even more fun to write. So priority grouping. Under Options, if you click on Priority Grouping, you have the ability to set dates and or a fixed number of days, and we recommend the fixed number of days, for your priority grouping. What does that mean? Let's look at that. Here's an example. I've turned it on. I've enabled my priority grouping, and I want to look at fixed days so that this is not, if I fix the day and I run this product tomorrow, the day's still going to stay September 16th. So I like fixed days. This means if I set the number of days to 60, it says, hey, your top priority groups are records that were added since 60 days ago that match other records added since 60 days ago. These are your hottest dupes. They've come in together in the last 60 days. If I change this to 90, then it's going to be all records that match other records added within the last 90 days. Priority 2 says, hey, it's records that were added in the last, in this case, 60 days, but they match other records that are older than 60 days. So those are my second hottest. And you may decide priority 2 is more important than priority 1. I don't know. Greg Hartigan, he architected this for us. He's heads up our support here, and he thought priority 1 should be dupes that were both created recently. So priority 2 is my dupe came in the last 60 days, and it matches a record that's older than 60 days. Priority 3, I call that the rainy day priority. In this case, it's records that are duplicates, and both the duplicate and the existing record it's matching against are both older than the number of days entered here. So in this case, both of them are older than 60 days. I highly recommend you turn this on and focus on priority 1 and 2, and then start working on priority 3 as you have time. Once you get caught up, really priority 1 and 2 are going to be all you have once you're caught up. But those are your hottest ones to fix, and those are the ones I really recommend you start focusing on. Those are our 3 priorities. Now, tackle the stack. So your first option is I found a duplicate, right? So 1311 and 1259. And my first choice is I'm going to merge these. That's going to do a merge right on the fly. As you know, when you use iMerge, it takes about, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds to do a merge. So sometimes if you've got a whole bunch of dupes and you're waiting 5 to 10, or if you're calling a bunch of stored procedures even up to 30 seconds, this is going to slow you down. You want to just crank through these. So your next choice is to go and say, add to a batch merge. I'm going to merge all of these in a batch. So I can quickly go through, mark the ones I want to merge, and then merge them all at once. And then finally, the other choice is, I don't want to see these anymore. They're legit. Add them to my known duplicates. They should not be appearing anymore. So let's do some cool stuff with merges, okay? And that's going to be calling a stored procedure. It is the most powerful part of iMerge. Bruce Wilson will probably take credit for this way back when, because he asked for this 10 plus years ago, and we added it and we've enhanced it over and over again. It's not for the faint of heart. You really kind of got to know SQL, or at least be somewhat comfortable with SQL. If you get stuck here, it's really not included in your support agreement. The NIAID listserv would be a great place. I will tell you off list, even though we're recording this, if you emailed me personally at the end and said, why can't I get this stored proc to work, I'd be happy to kind of take a quick gander at it. And if you're way off base, I'm going to just kind of tell you that, but I can't go rewrite it for you. But this is, like I said, the most powerful feature of iMerge. Now, we allow you to call a stored procedure at 3 different times. The first one is what we call before pre-merge checks. Give you an example. We had someone buy iMerge, and they had a whole bunch of duplicates. And each record was signed up for the same event. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they were signed up for the same event. And what they wanted to do was they knew about it, and the first registration was invalid. They just needed to mark it canceled and get rid of it. And they were smart enough to write the code to do that. So the problem is iMerge would say they're both registered for the same event. Nah, I'm not merging these. So they were able to write a stored procedure that would go and clean up the duplicate registration before iMerge even looked at it. Another example is to delete a duplicate subscription. iMerge is going to warn you about a duplicate subscription. If you know that the record may have a duplicate, you could go clean it up ahead of time. It's our most advanced option. But before the merge, I love this one, because that's really what I say is to warn the people, do not touch this record. Don't ever merge this record. The example I like is someone hired a temp and they deleted the executive director from the database. The temp was not working the next day, but true story. And then after the merge is where you're going to clean up your user credentials, user-defined fields, say keep the oldest join date, keep the newest paid through date, and we provide sample code for all of that. So we give you all that. In order to do this from iMerge, you go to Options and you say Call Stored Procedure. And then I took some screenshots from the manual. Here's a sample stored procedure that we give you that basically says we're going to keep the oldest join date, we're going to keep the most recent paid through, and I'm going to move the spouse name if it's missing on the record I'm keeping but filled in on the record I'm getting rid of. So there's a little bit of manual work you have to do here. You can actually copy and paste most of this code and reuse it. But there's a little bit of work you have to do, but it really allows you to have full control over exactly what iMerge is doing rather than having it do what you don't want it to do. We just updated the manual. I forget the individual who pointed it out, but he kept driving me nuts saying, when are you going to show me how to do this? Our sample code in the manual is wrong for calling 2 stored procedures. So if you have 2 different procedures you need to call at the same time, we gave you some bum code. So we rewrote the manual and gave real samples for calling 2 stored procedures. Here's the example, and it's in the manual. This is the one saying if the merge to ID is 200, so you cannot merge to this ID. So Here's sample code to actually stop someone from merging to, or you can even use it from a certain ID. So if you want to use our cool little user credentials merge, and I'm going to talk about what that is, all you have to do is configure iMerge for it. You go into the stored procs, you say at end of merge, you choose the CSI SP merge web account. That is already going to be in your database. We put it in there for you, and just set the parameters, set the two values the way you see here. Duplicate ID gets set to duplicate ID. Merge to ID gets set to merge to ID. And you want to do that at the end of the merge. Like I said, eating our own dog food, I noticed that one of the screenshots in our manual has this before pre-merge checks. That's a bad time to merge user credentials. You want to do it at the end of the merge. So let's talk about merging user credentials, the way we implemented it here, and I think it's really powerful. What it's going to do, it's going to keep the most recently used and or created user credentials, no matter which IMUS record you're keeping. So for example, Zach's been a member for a number of years. The guy's forgetful. He always forgets his user credentials, and he always goes and creates a new record online and registers himself for a meeting. So I'm going to use iMerge, and I really need to merge that registration over to his existing record because it has all his committee appointments and whatnot. But I'm going to keep his user credentials from the record he just created. My hope is he is going to remember those credentials he just created. We all know the odds of that are pretty low, but we got a shot at it. It looks like this. Here was his existing record, Zach Brandt, and he last logged on that one in 2013. I need some new screenshots here. Here's the record he just created where he logged on in 2014. So his old record that we're going to keep has a login of zbrandt and some password. I don't know what it is. His new record has a login of Zach and maybe the same password, maybe an old password. We don't know. We can't see it. When I do the merge and I take 201 into 200, his new record now has the new login of Zach, not zbrandt. It has brought his password over as well, and it has updated the last login and last active dates in IMUS. So that is really designed to keep the existing, the most recently used one, the one that we have the best shot of him remembering. Once again, to put this in, I'm going to give it to you right here. You go to Options, Call Stored Procedure, select at the end of the Merge Radio button, select that little CSI Merge web account that we have in there, set your duplicate ID to duplicate ID and your merge to ID to merge to ID, and hit Save. And that is now turned on. All right, getting near the end of our 30 minutes, so let's talk about some new stuff we've added. ASI is always adding some cool new fields behind the scenes, and we've got to get caught up and update iMerge for those. Registered by ID is a cool little ID field that IMUS added in one of the more recent versions of 20. So we're going to merge that over as well. In the 12 or 15 years we've had iMerge, we really never had someone take a member and merge it into a company, or take a company and merge it into a member. And we're going to stop those now and kind of warn you, because what happens is if you go and you take a company and merge it into an individual, you've just attached a whole bunch of people to an individual record in IMUS, and that's not good. So we've added warnings now. If you try and merge a company into an individual, or an individual into a company, you're going to get a warning. So I don't know if the person who suggested that fix or change is on the call, but thank you. Same thing, block merging of known duplicate IDs. As I said, you're going to mark all these IDs that you know are duplicates and they're bad, and that's great, but now you're in your main screen and your temp doesn't know that, and he or she goes and merges them. It's actually going to block you. You will not be able to merge a known duplicate ID from the main screen. And now, this is fun, we added the ability to adjust all changelog entries from iMerge. Now you're probably saying, well, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. We thought we were pretty darn smart way back when we made this really cool changelog entry called merge ID. We give you the ID into the new ID. Okay, so that's what the changelog entry has always looked like in IMUS. In fact, there's also a table in IMUS that tracks these merges as well. Just a heads up. You can't undo a merge, but if for some reason it wasn't in the changelog, there's another table in IMUS that tells you all the merges you've ever done. The problem is when we look at this in the staff site, it looks like this. And thanks to Keith Williams for pointing that out. And he says all my changes don't show in the staff site. So now when you use iMerge, it does what ASI does. And you can laugh at the text, but I didn't create it. It's party.merged and then :ID, and it's the old ID into the new ID. That's what it looks like now when you use iMerge. And in the staff site, it looks just like that, because that's what ASI says a merge should look like. Now the problem is, you might have had iMerge for the last 10 or 12 years, and so you got a lot of changelog entries. So if you want to go change them all to the new format, and this is an option, you don't have to do it, you go to Tools, Correct Changelog Output. It says, hey, do you want to scan the records for an outdated format? Yep. It tells you how many records it's found, and asks you to proceed, and once you hit yes, it will go and correct all of those changelog entries to the new format. Real quick, right now you go to our website, 4.2.8 is out there, released on October 17th. 8th time we've made a release this year. We want to hear from you. We enhance the product based on your request, based on things we see, based on all sorts of things. So do not hesitate to email us. We have 4.3.0 coming out this week. It may be .1. You're probably like, well, Doug, you kind of skipped 9. If they do a build here and we put it through our QA process and it fails, we go back to the developer and we make them update the version, because we need to test it from a clean install. And when they go and say, just uninstall iMerge and reinstall it, it'll be fine. We don't play that game. You should be able to install the latest release without uninstalling. So our 9th release will be coming out. It'll be 4.3.0 or 4.3.1. And like I said, thank you so much for all of your suggestions over the years, all of your enhancements. Every one of these releases, just about everyone, comes from either you guys submitting an idea or a support ticket. I'm going to open it up, see if there's any questions. We'll give it a minute, and then after that, while we're waiting for those, I'm going to leave these up on here in case you don't have any questions. There's my email address. You can use that as a secret email if you want me to look at some SQL code. Brittany's email is on there. She's the sales. And, of course, our support email address is on there. If you have any issues with iMerge, simply send in to us the issue you're having. If you can give us a screenshot, if you can tell us what version of iMerge you're using, if you can make sure error reporting is on, that's also an iMerge. All of those are huge. Submit it. We run about a day or two to turn around on those. If it's really critical, you can follow up with a phone call, and we'll try and prioritize it. So that's another thing to do. Well, this is good. I don't have any questions. That either means I confused you guys completely, or it was the most awesome presentation in the world, or we left the phone on mute, one or the other. So I do want to thank you all for your time. As Brittany said, this is going to be up on our website later today. Feel free to download it. You can share it with your peers. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us. We're here for you. So thanks again for everything.